So the trade deadline is on Friday, and there is a team that I have been thinking about that has really been making me curious, and that is the Vancouver Canucks. Will they sell? Will they buy? Will they do nothing? It's kind of up in the air right now. They are in a very weird spot heading into the trade deadline where, yeah, they traded away JT Miller. They got Marcus Pettersson. That felt like it was reaccumulating assets that they gave up in the Miller trade. So I don't really consider that as like a buy or a sell. I think those two trades are in a different world. The question is, though, this Canucks team, while they are above 500, well, they do above 500 record, they're not that great. They have a record of 27, 22, and 11 for 65 points at this point on Monday. They are 4, 5, and 1 in their last 10, and they are 1 point out of the playoffs. Calgary is battling right there with them. And the Canucks have the 7th hardest schedule in the NHL for the rest of the season. That's not ideal. No, it's not ideal there whatsoever. I think if you're the Canucks, you got to at least be looking at it and considering, yeah, we might have to go down that road and maybe sell. Again, like, I'm not saying that they should go into like an insane sell, but I think you should definitely consider it. This has been a disaster year for Vancouver. And a year last year that looked so good, was so much fun. This team was in such a great spot. Now it's turned into the point where we don't know what direction Vancouver's going to go in. And we thought that maybe trading away JT Miller was going to solve everything. It hasn't solved anything. It really hasn't solved anything. Pettersson has not panned out the way that we thought he was going to after the Miller deal. And the Canucks locker room, we don't know everything, but it just seems so dysfunctional, honestly. Again, we heard it a lot during the saga of the Miller versus Pettersson when he was still there, of how the locker room took two sides. One side was on Pettersson's end, one side was on Miller's end. And I wonder if that's still there. And there's a side of the locker room that just doesn't like Pettersson, and two sides have completely come against each other. I wonder if that's still there. I wonder if that is still happening. And I think, judging by the way this Canucks team has played down the stretch, I really do think it is. I think that is something that, if you're Vancouver, there's really no way to fix it besides, I guess, trading everybody. I mean, yeah, Rutherford or Alvin or Taki can go into the room and be like, look, you guys need to sort out your differences. We're going to keep this team together. You guys need to play the way we know you can play. I'm not so sure the Canucks would do that, though. I'm not so sure the players would be like, oh, yeah, let's put our differences aside with the player who, got one of our favorite guys traded away and just roll with it. I wonder if that really would happen. I don't think so, though. So the only way that you can really solve this, in my opinion, is by probably trading one of them. Trading not just one of them, a lot of them. And I wonder if Vancouver, if they do lose to Anaheim this week at home, if they really do consider doing that. Now, they are 1-4 since the Four Nations break. Let's go through their road trip here a little bit. They start off playing against the Vegas Golden Knights, where they lose that one 3-1. Yeah, Vegas is a good team. They've had Vancouver's number this season, I guess. Then they lose 2-1 to the Utah Hockey Club, and you're like, yeah, you should be beating that team. They're below you in the wild card race, but Utah's rolling. Then you beat LA 3-2 in overtime. Hey, not bad, I guess. You are on the road playing LA. You could easily lose that game. You'll take it, I guess. And then the other two losses came that were not good. They lost 5-2 to the Anaheim Ducks. And that's a statement. That is a statement. Even if it is on the road, losing 5-2 to a team that is below you, and they looked like they really weren't close in that game either. And it's a statement. It's a bloody statement saying that you can't beat a bad team like that, and then they get absolutely walked by Seattle on Saturday night. 6-3 loss. They are 1-4 since the Four Nations break has concluded. And I overall just think, like, seeing that should tell you enough. Maybe they will be able to come out of this and maybe make it, but if I'm Alvin, I might be thinking, yeah, this seems like a loss of a season. Let's see what we can trade away and see if we can get what we can. That's what I would do if I was Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford. Now, I understand the fact that they may not go down that road. They may decide, no, we're going to stay with this team that we have. But I think you have to at least consider it. You have to gauge the market for the players that you have and see what you can do. Seriously. And again, I'm not saying they should sell. I'm asking the question, could they sell? Me personally, I think they should. Now let's look through some guys that I think could get moved at the deadline if they do decide to sell. Now again, some of these guys would be like if they would go like full blown sell. But the guy that seems like the biggest option right now and the biggest guy that could get traded for Vancouver is Brock Boeser. Now, Boeser was offered a 5-year, $8 million contract earlier on in this past week, and Boeser said no because he wants more term. And I wonder if Vancouver sees that before the deadline and is like, yeah, no, you're traded. I wonder if they do decide to make that decision. I'm thinking about it because, again, if they don't want to give him term now, who's to say they're going to give him term in a couple of weeks? That's not really going to change. Maybe you bump it up to six years at, $8 million or $9 million, but it doesn't seem like he's going to get a lot more term than that. I feel like 5 years is kind of term, but again, he wants probably like a max deal. He is in his prime. I do understand that. This year, though, 53 games played, 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points. He is on the last year of a $6.65 million deal, and he is 28, as I just said. Again, I think that he realistically could get traded to a team that needs scoring and pop off because he has struggled at points in Vancouver in his career in being able to score just because he hasn't really been able to reach that potential. And last year he did. He scored 40 last year exactly. This year's been a little bit slower. He might get a little bit over half of that, might score might cap off at 30 at the end of the year. But overall, it is definitely a decrease from last year, and I wonder, seeing that he wants more term, could the Canucks be like, yeah, no, we're not paying you that much, we're not giving you that much term, and we're going to move you? And I wonder if they would do that. I think you could get a decent amount for him. You could probably get a first-round pick. If Boeser's on the market, he scored 40 goals last year, you could get a first-round pick. And if I'm Brock Boeser, I got to be honest, seeing that lowball offer, I would want to leave anyway. Maybe Vancouver keeps him post the trade deadline, but Boeser might just leave in the offseason anyways, and then you lose him for nothing. So, unless if you have real reassurance that you're going to give him the term that he wants, he's going to re-sign with you, he wants to be a Canuck. I think he's made that clear. He hasn't said anything otherwise. But if I'm Vancouver, if you're not going to give him the term that he wants, trade him. Simply being put. Now, there's a few other guys that I think could get traded, and we're going to go through them here, but they're not as likely as Boeser. I'm going to say that right now. Boeser seems like the number one guy who probably may get moved at the deadline, but there are a few other guys that I think, could garner interest if the Canucks decide, yep, we're going full-blown sell. Carson Soucy was one of them that I've seen on the market a couple of times. Soucy, 58 games played, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points, is on a 2-year, $3.25 million deal. So whoever is getting him will have him next season as well. And he's also 30 years old. So for a guy like him, I don't think he's a bad third pairing option. It's a very dry market this year for players. It wouldn't surprise me if a team would cough up a second or a third for him. It wouldn't. And again, if you really do decide to sell and do that, a second could go a long way for a team that seems like it's not in that great of a position, at least as of right now. They have a decent future, but Pettersson's not panning out. If he doesn't pan out, then I don't know. I don't know, seriously. So maybe get some extra draft capital for a guy like Soucy. He's an option I could see getting moved. Another guy, too, is Pius Suter, who is on the last year of a $1.6 million deal. He's 28 years old, has played 59 games this year, has 16 goals, 12 assists for 28 points. I think I could see Suter getting moved as well. Again, he's a guy that is cheap. He has 16 goals this year, is going to be like a 20-goal scorer, could get you some extra depth in the playoffs. I don't think Vancouver should be as opposed to moving out that money or moving out that contract. So I think they should go down that road. I don't know what you could really get for Suter, though. I think he's going to be like a fourth-line option if teams really can't find a guy. But for that amount of money, scoring that amount of goals, 20 goals for like a $1.5 million player is pretty good, pretty valuable. So I think if you're Vancouver, you should take that. You should definitely try and move him and maybe get something for him there as well. Again, ideally, you're not going to get a lot. You're not going to get a lot for a lot of these players except maybe Brock Boeser. but you should at least gauge the market for some of these guys. Now, a guy that I have on here who is rather unlikely he gets moved, but I could see it if they get the right offer, Connor Garland. Garland for the Vancouver Canucks. 60 games played this year, 16 goals, 21 assists, 37 points. He's 28 years old. He has 1 year left after this year on a $4.95 million deal. A little bit of an overpay for his money and how he's doing this year, but I think if you're a team that is looking for some secondary scoring, you could take a guy like Garland. Again, he can fit in well on your third line as a grit guy. We know he can play that way and piss people off. He's never been in the playoffs before in his career besides, I think, 1 year in Arizona and obviously last year in Vancouver. So he hasn't been in the playoffs all that much, but when he's been in the playoffs, he's been decent. So I think for a team that is looking for a guy who can provide you secondary scoring and be on your middle six, Garland's an underrated option. But again, if you're getting him, you would have to have him on term for next season. That is something that teams are a little bit straying away about, but that was something I was thinking about there when I was heading into this with the Canucks at the deadline. And then the big one, we'll wrap up with this guy, Elias Pettersson. So Elias Pettersson, I'm going to preface this right now. I don't think it's a move that's going to happen right now. He's off the block for now is what the Canucks have been saying, but I do think that it is not out of the question whatsoever that he will get moved eventually, maybe in the offseason. It's very interesting to see what's going to happen there because he's 26 years old. He's on the first year of an $11.6 million contract. He has not panned out whatsoever. This season, 54 games played, 11 goals, 24 assists, 35 points. We wondered maybe it was just Tocchet's system. Maybe that was it. Then he struggled in the Four Nations. Just didn't look like the Pettersson that we've seen him in other international competition in previous years. Hasn't been there. It hasn't been there. And I've heard rumblings that maybe it's an injury, maybe it's something there, but I'm not sure how much you can really buy into that, in my opinion. I'm not really sure if you can just say, oh, yeah, he's injured. That's it. I think there's more there. And I wonder if Pettersson's a guy that might need to change his scenery, but to be honest with you, with his value, it could not be at a lower point. It could not be. If Pettersson is on a shorter-term contract and with less money, then I think there are teams that would go for it. But 11.6 for 7 more years after this season. Again, he's in the first year of that. Brutal look. I don't think there are teams that are going to take that. I don't. I don't think there are going to be a lot of teams that can take that with that amount of money. You're going to have to retain at least a little bit. And even at that, I don't know if you're going to get a lot of assets back in return. It's just they're in such a bad spot right now with that Pettersson deal. I truly don't know. This Canucks team went from a team that looked like they had such a great future, a great roster, a team that was going to win the Pacific next in this season, to a team where we really don't know what their direction looks like. So let me know your thoughts down below. I thought this would be an interesting video to make. We are heading into the closer point of the trade deadline. We will be having more videos about this. There's a few teams I want to talk about before the deadline hits. But let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video down below. And please do consider subscribing to join the community that we are building here. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.